Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's topic is a reflection on the first year of not having my dad, because it's officially been a year. His passing anniversary was April 25th, so now it's been a year and 2 weeks, and kind of just wanted to go over how the grief process has worked for me and how things I expected happened and things that were unexpected happened, you know, after he passed, because it's this, you don't know what it's like to lose a parent until it happens. And as much as there's Google and other people's experiences, you are kind of just falling into a big black hole of nothingness because you don't know what's going to happen for you in particular. So again, this is my personal experience. It's going to differ from yours. There may be similarities, but what I found is everybody has different experiences. 1 year out, one of my favorite words is weird, and what I will say is grief is the weirdest thing ever. I remember when he died, the first thing I did was cry in relief because it was over. His sickness was over. And I think what's really kind of messed me up with all of this is that by the end of it, I wanted him to die. And that is a weird sentence to say because I loved him so much, but the amount of pain and suffering he was in from pancreatic cancer that he had, I just knew that this wasn't the life that he deserved. The suffering that he had, the pain, the delusions, like, he did not deserve that. And at the end, having that thought of, oh, I wish he would just die already, it was really conflicting because nobody wants to think that, especially when you really love somebody. And even now when I say it, like, I'm worried that when you guys watch this, you're gonna be like, oh my god, I can't believe she wanted her dad dead. But I really just wanted his suffering to go away, and to know that for his suffering to go away, he had to die and go away forever, that's a really tough thing to grasp with. But I also had to remind myself that every month that he got sicker, he became less and less of himself. The man that was diagnosed in August of 2017 with cancer to the man who died with stage 4 pancreatic cancer April 25th, every single day he lost a part of himself, whether it was his personality or his strength. Every day he started to look less and less like my dad. And I think the saddest part for me, and something that I've had to deal with this past year, is trying to remember him not sick, because I've had issues with night terrors and PTSD where I can't remember him not sick. And it's crazy because 19 whole years of my life he wasn't sick, and the last 9 months of his life were just so full, and you know, having to be around him 24/7 as his caregiver, were just so full of watching him basically fall apart that, like, I can't remember him not being sick. I can't remember him not, you know, being dependent on me. And whenever I have dreams about him, or I would say they're more nightmares, I can't take melatonin anymore because they create very vivid nightmares of him dying or just being sick. And I just can't think of him not sick. Or if I do think of a memory that, you know, happened before he was sick, it's always tied to a sickness part of him. And I think that's been the hardest part for me to grasp with. And the first 6 months were definitely the hardest, and I think for grief, that's just, it is what it is. But I've gotten a little bit better at, you know, working through that and remembering good times with him before he was sick. Although it sucks, there's so many parts that when he was sick that I really loved. Like, the love connection that I made with him was beyond any father-daughter bond that I had before. I think this happens when anybody, if you have a loved one who's terminally ill, like, the whole family experience, my immediate family, it was just like this love connection that I can't even describe. It's almost like tangible. Like, right now, like, I'm moving my hands around because I can almost like feel it. I can feel it happening, and I could remember that like powerful sensation of love and just helping each other. And that, it was such a positive experience of that whenever I'm having really tough days, I just try to remember that. that feeling, a lot of it was just feelings. Like whenever I really miss him, sometimes if I close my eyes, I can almost tangibly feel his skin, because his liver was basically completely covered in a tumor. His skin, his filtration system wasn't working, so his skin was crepey, or like almost like paper mache, and if I like close my eyes, I can like feel it. Like I can remember putting my hands on his skin and like feeling that, and that brings me so much comfort. And it's weird because he was so sick, he was dying, and like that's what I remember. But whenever I get really sad, I can just sometimes feel that like tactile representation of him. And right now that's so beneficial. In the beginning of all this, when he first passed, tactile issue, I had many issues with like tactile memories, with PTSD triggers. It would cause chills in my body. Like I would feel the wet, clammy, kind of his clammy skin when he passed for like months, or if I smelling food, or just in some areas I'd be triggered and I would smell his bed sores. And I can say that now, a year later, I do not have those. Sometimes the smell will trigger something, but I know the first few months I really struggled with that. I was just very overstimulated. I had a lot of nervous tics. I would stim, which is like, I have so much energy pent up inside of me that I would just have to like release it. And I really struggled with crowds. Right now at this point, I am much better with that. Sometimes I have days where that happens again. I will say, and I guess I'll kind of go into times that I've had problems this past year, was definitely the last 2 weeks, or basically his week of like his hospice and death. I did not know how I was gonna react during this time, because overall I had been pretty good. Christmas was rough, but you know what, even like Father's Day last year, I was 100% fine. And then this is just a note to people, and I know that it's coming from a place of caring, and again, this varies for people, but for me personally, last year I was totally okay on Father's Day, and then I had basically almost forgotten it was Father's Day, but I was just like, okay, whatever, it is what it is, not that big of a deal. But then I kept getting messages from people saying, oh, it must be so hard for you today, I'm so sorry, like posting on Facebook and things like that, and that like attention that I didn't want kind of triggered emotions that were like, they could have just been avoided if people just didn't say anything. I think there's a very fine line, and I think social media is an issue, I think, with grief now. I feel like that's a whole other video I could dive into right now, but people trying to help or publicly help and show their public support just is sometimes not what you need. It's not helpful. I'd have days where I would be totally fine at work, like doing my thing, and then I would help a customer and they would remind me of Dad, or they would just piss me off or something, and I'd be like finishing up. I remember this one person so clearly, finishing up their order, and I had tears in my eyes, and I go, oh my god, what is happening? And I hand them their food, and I went to the back and just started bawling. I was like, what the fuck? Like, this grief is so weird. That was another thing. I had so many times at work where like I'd have my head down, and out of my peripherals I would think I would see my dad, because my dad would come visit me at work a lot, and the first couple times I'd like look up and be like, oh my god, is he here? And then I'd have to train myself to just be like, wait a second, he's dead, he's not here. When you look up, you're gonna see a stranger. And that was something that I've had to train myself on, because I've had that happen to me a lot, and I think that's just the brain not connecting the events that happen to real life. Or I guess it's just the hope that when I looked up he would be there, even though I literally watched him die. It's just so weird how the brain sometimes just cannot connect events because of emotional blocks and things of the sort. I realized, like, after all, the psychology is just so intriguing, because the way that the brain, I think, tries to protect yourself. I've been very like self-aware during this past year, but what I was not expecting was the 1 year anniversary of his death. And it was hard because he went into hospice on his 60th birthday, which was April 19th, and then that whole week he was in hospice and it was a hot mess, and then he passed on April 25th. So this time around I was on spring break around that time, and I just felt like shit. Like, I just felt so bad, and I did not expect it because we had the Pan Purple Stride event April 13th, and that was awesome. You know, shed a few tears, but it was because, you know, we were supported by people, meeting friends. And, you know, it was a big event raising money for pancreatic cancer. April 13th, I was fine. That was a Saturday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I was totally cool. Wednesday, I was like, which was the 17th, I was like, oh, I kind of feel like sad. This is weird. But, you know, Friday was coming up to his birthday. Thursday, I was triggered by something, and I cried for 7 hours straight. I could not stop the tears, and I've honestly never had this happen to me before, where I just could not stop crying for 7 hours. I fell asleep in the middle of those 7 hours and woke up crying. Like, literally my eyes open and they just started flooding with tears. I was getting dehydrated. I had such a pounding headache. I was just a mess. And that was something that was just so out of left field because it wasn't even his birthday. It wasn't even like a significant day. And it was almost like my body was like recreating or remembering the tiredness that I was feeling during that time, because I mean, at that point I was maybe sleeping like 4 hours a night, 6 maximum if I was like lucky. And it almost was like my body was like recreating that exhaustion and that sadness, and I also wasn't really crying last year just because I was so in it. And when I'm in it, like, I don't have any emotions. Like, even when he died, I cried, but it was still like, I felt weird crying. I almost became embarrassed to cry because I felt like I had to be really strong. So for me to cry for 7 hours straight, it was like mind-blowing. Like, I kept saying, as like tears were streaming, I was able to like literally just cry with a blank facial expression because I had such a pounding tension headache from it that I just would stop having emotions and have a completely relaxed face with tears still flowing down. It was crazy. It was something I've never experienced before. And then Friday, I actually felt pretty okay. I was just so tired, and I really think, and then for that whole week I was tired. I basically didn't go to any of my classes. I was just exhausted. It was like I was up every night taking care of him again, and I couldn't go to bed. I had taken melatonin and Xanax. I was like really trying to go to sleep one night. Could not go to sleep till like 3:30. It was like my body was preparing to have to hear Emma, me having to get up and go take care of him. And that was something I was just really not expecting. His death day was also weird. I just stayed home, ordered Seamless. I did have to go to one class, and everybody was just so annoying that I was just like, ugh. And nobody knows that my dad died, but I was just like, oh my god, I'm wasting my time here. I could just be home relaxing. But it was just pure exhaustion no matter what I did. And now I feel like this has been the first week and a half where I've had like very mental clarity on everything. Yeah, that's kind of been my year review after Dad's passed. It's strange, it's weird, my favorite word. I think even just doing this, whether it reaches 10 people or 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever, I feel like I'm in a therapy session because I'm able to explain my experience first to a camera, hoping it makes sense, and then hopefully other people watching it, whether that be family, friends, or strangers, to just get an inside glimpse on what I've been experiencing. Because although I've talked about it with people I'm close with, obviously, and family and stuff, I still think that there's a lot of people I know who don't know and are maybe curious. And if you are, then definitely watch these videos. I think I have a lot to lend to people. I feel extremely wise. Sometimes I feel like a 40-year-old woman, 50-year-old woman with all of the experiences I've had. And if this was as worse as the grief is gonna get, because I feel like the first year it's going to be the worst, If this is the worst, then I know that I can handle it. And I just have to remind myself, and what I tell myself whenever I get sad is that he is in a better place. I do not want to see him suffering anymore. And I will take all this energy to raise awareness about pancreatic cancer. I think my next video is going to be about pancreatic cancer and about PanCan, the organization, just so people can have some awareness with it. So thank you so much for watching, guys, listening to my rambles, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.